This is an HR program on demand, a living seed capsule of work life and workplace coming live from a rooftop in Stockholm, Sweden. It's me, Ann-Marie Andrich, and
me, Katarina Berg.
A vodcast, if you like, on HR, straight across the counter. Sponsored by HR, the real deal, HR by HR for HR. Hello, Ebba.
Hi.
Welcome to the HR VOD from a very, very rainy rooftop. But we're so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to finally be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. We will talk about sustainability today, and that is clearly a topic that is on everyone's agenda currently. So I'm very excited to have you join us and elaborate on how you work with sustainability at Spotify. But first, before we dive deep into that topic, please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and how long you've been working at Spotify.
So my name is Ebba Grythberg. I'm the Global Sustainability Manager at Spotify, and I've been so for the last 2.5 years. So I have a background in a totally different industry, actually fashion and retail, so nothing to do with tech. But in sustainability, of course. So when I came to Spotify, it was a totally new industry and a totally new thing to learn. So I oversee the global sustainability team, which I see myself as a little bit of a janitor for sustainability in the company. So mainly having this like small central team, but then making sure that the company can drive sustainability in their work.
Lovely. Interesting background. And let's also talk about, your... What was when you joined? You said you came from the retail industry, and then you joined Spotify, being a tech and media company. What was your, let's say, first impressions and maybe also surprises?
My first impression, I think, was a lot about kind of internal transparency, which I still think is amazing. How Spotify share a lot with its employees, and also kind of how fast moving it is. And that everyone is fast moving. Things can happen really fast and really big here. So that was the main thing that was different from this industry. And it's also like a very positive surprise, because sustainability can be a quite heavy topic to drive, because it's a lot about kind of change management and changing practices that people are working on, which can be quite tough to drive. But here I feel that people are really open to change, which is super, super helpful in driving this area.
Yeah, for sure. And what was, when you joined then, where were you with sustainability at that point?
Spotify as a company.
Yes.
I mean, I think the recruitment of me came from a big engagement within the company among the employees. So there is a really kind of high engagement with the employees, and said we need to do more in this area. There were initiatives all around the company, but no kind of common effort and no kind of common strategy for it. Mm-hmm. So that was my job, to take that on and say, okay, what is sustainability for Spotify? What should we focus on, and how should we drive sustainability, and how can we make it ours? Because as you said, I mean, sustainability is on everyone's agenda, and it's easy to kind of just follow the common route. But I think it's so important that you really kind of make it yours and say, okay, what does this mean for our company, and how can we drive sustainability?
Exactly. Very good that you point that out, that it has to be, it has to be something that fits you,
yes,
your culture and what you want to drive, and also aligning to your business, right?
Yeah.
So great. So this is where you started. How did you practically go about it?
To begin with, it was a lot about meeting people, of course, getting to know the companies, and kind of trying to kind of figure that out. So what is sustainability, and what is the appetite for sustainability? And of course, that was the first question, of course, when kind of deciding to join Spotify. So is there an appetite? Do we have a high ambition? And the answer I got was that we have a high ambition. I mean, for sustainability, and we want to take on sustainability as we take on other issues. We want to do it in our way, and we want to do it big. And that was also the feeling I got when I talked to people around the company. We're engaged. We don't really exactly know how to do it, but we want to do something big. And that is, of course, I mean, music to my ears.
Definitely, and a very, very good start.
Yes. So that was the kind of mapping out. So where are we? Where do we want to go? And then kind of first deciding on, so what is the first area we should tackle? And I think we have the benefit of being in an industry that doesn't have a set script for what sustainability issues to work with. And the first thing we decided to focus on was, I mean, not very strange, climate, because that is something that we all need to focus on to make sure that we have a livable planet. So that was kind of how do we take on climate, and then we set the overarching strategy as a sustainability team. So where are we? How do we approach this? And we approach it from two parts really. The first one is kind of, okay, what negative impacts do we have as a company and how do we make sure that we mitigate that? And we do have, I mean, for some it's like, okay, tech and climate, how does that even fit together? Because you think about cloud and you think about everything happening, you know, up in the air, which is of course, you have a physical presence somewhere. So we do have emissions and we do have fossil fuels in our value chain. So, I mean, the first part is to how do we address that? And then we set net zero targets. So our goal is to become net zero or have net zero emissions within the coming decade. So that is kind of our own, the negative part, or so to say, how do we make sure that we do no harm? But then it's the second part of our strategy, which I think is the most exciting part, and actually where we have the biggest potential to drive impact. And that is kind of how do we use the company we are to have a positive impact? How do we leverage the resources that we have? And of course, that can look very different depending on what kind of company you are. But for us, it's our platform and it's our reach. So we have a platform full of content and we have more than 400 million users. So, I mean, just imagine what you can do with 400 million users. And if you can reach 400 million users, imagine the impact you can have. And that is also, I mean, one of those areas where we can have a drive change is raising awareness on the climate crisis. And we are trying out a lot of things to do that. And it's mainly through curating content that is already on the platform, so that make sure that users can find that content, and also creating new content to raise awareness.
Fantastic. And I just see the passion and glow in your eyes when you talk about this, Ebba. Yeah. Great. Wonderful. And so that is how you raise the awareness on sustainability also to the outside world. What does this mean for the Spotifyers? How do you raise the awareness of this topic within the company?
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to it. I think the first that needs to be the kind of the base, and the thing is that it's like how do we enable Spotifyers to work with sustainability in their own roles, so that there's not something that you have to do on the side, or there's something like this is you do at home, this is the recycling you do at home. So more about how do we raise the awareness of how sustainability links to whatever you're doing. And I think a great example is how the R&D community at Spotify is tackling that. So they are a lot of engaged people on sustainability, but of course, and great engineers. So what they're doing is kind of setting up a way of working for their community. So they have like what they call R&D climate champions, a network of people who are driving to integrate sustainability and climate into R&D. For example, they have integrated in the engineering handbook, there's a climate section. They're also working to kind of how do we integrate climate measures into everything else we do. So I think that's the biggest part. And then of course, there's the element of letting everyone internally know what we're doing and engage on lectures or having scientists come and talk. But I think that's just kind of the sprinkle on the cake. The base of the cake should be actually how do you integrate it to make sure that everyone can work in a sustainable way.
Exactly. Very good. And you mentioned that R&D has this community of ambassadors. Is this something that you find elsewhere in other departments?
Yes, so I think R&D will definitely be kind of a role model in that. Right. How do we set up that in different parts of the company? Yeah. So we will also have climate champions for more areas.
Exactly.
And the important part there is that you want really people that can make a change in their daily work. From, of course, coming from an engagement and coming from an interest in the question, but also from like a mandate perspective, and also that you are able to kind of make changes in your roles. So it's not only something that you do on the side, because that I think can create frustration when you are things where you actually can't make a change. So it's more about how do we make sure that they actually can make an impact in their everyday lives.
Yeah, true. Very good. And very, very good point there as well. And you mentioned your team also earlier. What does your team look like? Who do you have in your team?
Yeah, so we have a small central team where we have a climate lead, it's me, and a sustainability coordinator. And we are small, and we are planning to continue to be small, because we know that, I mean, the big muscles aren't within our team. The big muscles are everywhere in the company. And the role of our team is kind of activating that and make sure that we enable it. I think as a janitor, and someone said, I think, like, shouldn't you call yourself an editor instead? Janitor sounds boring.
Right.
But it's about unlocking the doors and making sure, enable the company to drive that change. And that's a lot about the janitor. We're keeping it clean, we're keeping the right conditions for the magic to happen. So we see ourselves as the kind of the incubators and coordinators of sustainability in the company.
Great, very clear on what your role is there. And organizationally, you are within the HR team, right?
Yes.
Yeah? And it's also, would you say that, does that affect the way that you go about sustainability, or how would you reflect upon that?
Not really, but I do think, I mean, it's a little bit of an uncommon setup, I would say, looking at other companies, but I do think it might make a lot of sense, because what we're doing in our team is working cross-functionally. We're working with all the parts of the company, and we're really, I mean, working to drive change. So we are really working with change management. And that is a lot about what HR does as well, right?
Exactly.
So it does make a lot of sense to have that kind of in the HR function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a leading question.
Does it make sense? Yes.
Yeah, it does. Actually, it does make sense.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. If you look into the future and on the sustainability, what do you think? What will happen? Where will the focus be? Will it continue to be climate, and what will this mean for you?
You mean for Spotify or for the world at large?
Well, you can answer both questions.
Yes.
That would be super interesting.
Exactly. I think for the world at large, or for companies really, it's about what we talked a little bit about in the beginning. So how do you make sustainability yours? So how do you tie it to your company and to what you're doing? So I think in the beginning, sustainability was a lot about compliance, right? It's about kind of being legally compliant and ticking boxes, which of course you still need to do. But sustainability, for it to have real impact, needs to move further than that. And then it's about kind of how do we identify that kind of the positive impact you could have. And that is a lot about kind of this looking at, so what is it that you're really good at? What are your superpowers as a company? And looking at what does the world needs, and where is the kind of the intersection of that, and that is where you should focus your efforts. So really make sure that you're leveraged your company. That sustainability is nothing you do on the side or having like a philanthropy. It's more about how do you leverage the skills that you have to put that into good use. And for Spotify, it's really more of that the same. It's about how do we continue to use our company and continue to use the resources we have to drive positive change. So one exciting project that we're working on right now is we have created audio fiction. So it's short stories that we have worked together with a scientist that had developed scientific future scenarios of what can the future look like in 50 years from now. So in 2072, so that's also what we call the show, it's 2072. Then we have had writers which have no climate background, but real kind of writers of fiction or TV write stories and that, and then actors reading it. So we have this kind of a really fiction way of putting the listener in 50 years from now. And that has nothing to do, there's no kind of facts in that. It's nothing telling like this is global warming, this is this. So it's more about how do we make people feel? Because we think that's a kind of clear way of making people act in the end. Because we have a lot of the facts that we know, but how do we make people really feel climate and make that a part of their kind of way to act? So that's something that I'm super excited to see the results on, and I think that we will drive. So that's one way of using audio, our superpower, in the kind of fight against climate crisis.
I got goosebumps actually when you talked about this.
Yeah.
I think this is it's such a great way to go about it. As you said, we do have the facts. It's not like we don't know. It's not like we're not informed, but it's more like how do we get emotionally connected to this?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very good. Looking
Yes.
forward to dialing into those and listening. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ebba. Very, very inspiring. What great work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, in this rain.
Exactly.
Next time,
Yes.
maybe we will have sun.
Maybe we will have sun
Yes.
or snow.
Or
You don't
snow.
know.
Could be snow, definitely. So, you know how we close the VODs with the three things?
Yes.
Would you be kind enough to close it with us?
Let's give it a try.
Let's
shall
give
we?
it a try.
Let's
Perfect.
do
Okay.
it. Okay, do we have the umbrellas?
Yes.
So stay safe, stay strong, stay active.
Idemodalje.
Idemodalje.
Very good, Ebba.
Okay, should we do it together?
Yeah, we can do it together.
Okay.
Idemodalje. Great.
Thank
Perfect.
you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ebba.
for having me.
Thank you. Jag gillade att vi håller kvar den här. Ska vi göra den tillsammans? Vi får inte, du vet när först gör vi den lite separat i modellen. Ja. Och sen så säger Ebba, ja du håller hela.
Men var det rätt ord? Alltså stay strong, var det det?
Ja. Det var jättebra.
Ja, och det är häftigt tänker jag att det, för jag tänkte när jag såg väderprognosen så tänkte jag så här, men då är vi ju inne, eller så här. Nej men det är vi.
Nej. De tre sakerna, idemodalje, taket. Oavsett väder.
Ja, men inte så, jag tycker inte det är så farligt. Jag tycker det är ganska bra.
Okej, the final sip.
Final sip of water.
Everything is rolling
Great.
in the rain in Stockholm. We're so ready. Okay, like this.
Ready and a little bit wet.
Well, a lot actually. But anyways. Okej. Fy fan vilket bra jobb ni gör.
Ja, men we're trying.
jäklar.
Ja.